In this video, I'm going to be speaking about how I grow my wealth in my 30s. Now, I've been doing these YouTube videos for about a year now, and the majority of what you see is my brokerage account here where I go over various investments like ETFs. But this is not the true story. This is only part of what my net worth is. And I enjoy doing these videos as not only personal tracking, but also to give you all a complete picture of how everything breaks down. So I'm going to get into it, but before we do that, if you enjoy this content, give this video a like to get this content out there to a wider audience, and subscribe for future content. So what you see on the screen right now is an Excel spreadsheet, and I track my net worth every single month, and I've been doing this since I was about 27 years old. And like I said, I do this every month consistently, and what you see here is the age at the time of the tracking. So right now I am 30, and I'm going to get into how my net worth has increased over time and pretty much the different accounts that I have. And this is pretty much going to be everything that I have here. So what you see in this column are my assets. Everything in green is an asset, and then everything in an orange color is basically my liabilities. And every month I fill out these cells here and then aggregate them, and it calculates my total net worth. So I have my ally accounts, which are basically my emergency savings account. That is split up into savings and CDs. My taxable brokerage investments, that's what I usually go over in my videos. My Chase Bank accounts, which are basically my operating accounts. My Regions Bank savings account, which is kind of like an intermediary savings account, which I put money through, and then once I decide what I'm going to do with it, I put that somewhere. And then my retirement account, my 401k and IRA, my HYSA, which is pretty nominal, and my car. And then I also have my liability accounts, which are pretty much my credit cards that I keep nominal bill payments in every single month. So if we scroll over, you can see the current date and then how those accounts changed month to month. Of course, this goes back even further, but really what I concentrate on is, of course, that month to month change. And you see my emergency fund increase, my taxable brokerage accounts increased, and some of my other accounts increased, and you also see the nominal amounts in my liabilities. And then I, of course, add these all together and then subtract the liabilities from the total assets, and then you get a calculation of my total net worth. And I really enjoy doing this because, like I said, this is full disclosure, and I think people only show their investments, and that doesn't really paint a complete picture of their net worth. So they show their investments and then don't really show that liabilities there or everything else that they own, and it may not show a complete picture. So the complete picture here is that I currently have a net worth of about $172,000, and that basically does most of the time increase. Of course, market fluctuations definitely depend, and whether it increases or decreases is kind of dependent on the market at this point. Of course, my other accounts here, like my savings accounts, do contribute a fraction of my net worth. So if I put more in savings, that will basically limit the volatility of my total net worth, because savings, of course, don't really increase or decrease based on market conditions. They are cash investments. And I think asset allocation is a very important factor to net worth, because if you have most of your net worth in cash, then that's a non-performing asset for the most part, and it doesn't really give your net worth much room to grow. So here you have all of my asset allocations. You see I have about $15,600 in cash, $96,600 in taxable, $44,600 in IRA, $14,750 in my car, and then my HSA is pretty nominal at $367. Now, if we make that into a nice little pie graph, you could pretty much see the asset allocation pretty clearly. So 56% of everything is in taxable investments. That is where I keep the bulk of my money. And a lot of people may be wondering why I do that. Why not put that into retirement? And I think having access to that is really good for a mental state. It allows me to take from that if I really need to. Probably not, but I also consider retiring before retirement age, hopefully. So that's why I don't keep a lot of my money in my retirement accounts. But you do see that I do have 26% in my retirement accounts, which is pretty good overall. And then you also see my cash here as 9%. and then my car, which is at 9% too, and HSA barely comes up. It shows as 0%, so that is pretty nominal on its own. But I think that this is a pretty good asset allocation because 10% around is cash, and a lot of people do like to have around 10% of their net worth in cash. Of course, I'm going to stop using so much cash once my emergency fund reaches $20,000 and put a lot of that into taxable. But for right now, I do think that that is pretty good. And these percentages right here, this 56% and 26% is really good because it allows my net worth to grow over time. And if we go back to the columns, you see how that increases over time on its own. So a bulk of that increase is not only contributions from my employment, but also changes in the market, which fortunately for right now has been going up for the most part. And I hope, and I'm sure all of you do as well, to see that increase over time. But this is really how my net worth breaks down. And I don't see a lot of YouTubers really showing this. They only really focus on, like I said, the investment part and not really the total asset allocation that everybody holds. So I really want to show this to you guys to have a complete picture. Now, getting a little bit more precise about my taxable accounts, what I do with my taxable account, I have 4 ETFs. I try not to overcomplicate it. I have QQQ, an ETF that tracks the NASDAQ 100, VIG, the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, and JEPI, which is the JP Morgan Premium Income ETF. It's a high dividend ETF. So these are the ETFs that I usually show on my videos, the ones that you're most familiar with. And now we get a little bit more precise with the retirement account. So I have a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, and that is as simple as it can get. I just have VOO, an ETF that tracks the S&P 500 in my traditional, and then I also have VOO in my Roth IRA there too. So I keep that as simple as possible. No need to overcomplicate things. I just have that for the long term, especially since I am a bit younger. It gives my investments room to grow, and it just tracks the overall market of the top 500 US companies. So I really do enjoy that ETF. It keeps it hands-free and it keeps it very, very simple. And now a breakdown of my cash. I'm not going to show you my Chase accounts because those are pretty nominal, and those are pass-through accounts where I basically receive all of my income and then it goes out, and it's just very simple. It's checking in and a small savings account. Same thing with my Regions account. But in my emergency fund, I do have, of course, the main fund here, which is a savings account. And then I also have 2 CDs trying to capture a little bit more of that yield there. So you see here that this one CD has a yield of 5.25%. And then I have another one at 4.5%. And then my savings account has 4.20%. So these, of course, are 1-year CDs, and that is going to basically change if the Fed decides to lower rates. And I don't really care too much because my emergency fund isn't really designed to capture growth. It's just designed to provide for emergency savings in case something happens. And then also I try to do that in the biggest way possible with yield. So if the yields are high, that's just an added benefit, but if they're not, then so be it there too. This is an HYSA, a high yield savings account, so it definitely provides a bit more of that percentage yield than your typical Chase account or the like. Going back to the retirement account, so I already discussed the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA with you already, but I also do have a 401k through my employer. I can't really show that because that's on my employer's network. But what I do is I just invest in the S&P 500, a mutual fund that tracks the S&P 500. I'm not sure what the symbol is, but it's just a simple S&P 500 tracking ETF, and that's about $760 something right now. I just started that job about a month and a half ago, so not really too much in that 401k right now, but that is what it is at. And then of course they do match a little bit that I think vested after 1 year. So that's going to come in, I think, around January, whatever they contribute there. As far as my vehicle goes, it is very simple. It is a Kia Rio. This is not my car, of course. This is a car online, but I basically paid off that loan because I hate debt, honestly. and this car is paid off. It gets me from point A to point B. I am not really a car guy. I don't really think that, of course, they're a great asset because they depreciate over time. And every single month, I take away $250 from the value of my car to account for depreciation. And you see that depreciation at this bottom row here. As you can see, every single month I've been taking away $250. Like I said, this is not an asset that's going to increase in value, but it's an asset you need. So I try to have those assets as cheap as possible, and then also not have a loan with them, because that's just going to take away from your net worth over time. Because first, the underlying is an asset that depreciates. And then if you had a car loan with that, that is a car loan that is going to have an interest rate, whether that be 4, 5, 6, 7%. So you have a depreciating asset and then a loan on top of that. That is a number one killer, I believe, of people's wealth, is a car like that that's going to depreciate and then you're paying interest on top of that. And as far as my debt goes, as I already said, I hate debt, of course, because it takes away from your net worth from an outgoing expense every single month, and then also the interest payments on top of that. So I basically carry almost no debt. I try to keep it as low as possible with these 3 credit cards. And that is all the debt I have right now. It is currently at $13.85. Of course, that definitely swings whether or not I have an outgoing bill payment. And then what I do is I just take from one of my checking accounts and then throw that toward it. So it's basically just an intermediary. I don't really use that for consumer spending because I don't want to carry a balance. Now, where am I going to be going forward? Of course, I want to increase my wealth as much as possible within reason. And I think after my e-fund, I already posted a reply to a comment that I'm going to be putting $100 to both SCHD and JEPI after I hit my e-fund number, and then contribute most of that money to VIG and QQQ. And then in my retirements are going to pretty much stay the same at VOO. I've been thinking about ways to diversify my investments too, because I don't know if I want to simply track the overall market through equities. I know there's going to be swings, and no matter what equity you have, whether that be safer equities like SCHD or JEPI, there's still equities. They still track the equity market. So if there's a downturn trend in the stock market, those ETFs are going to be impacted, although they may not be impacted as much as the overall market. They're still going to be impacted. However, I can't really think of a good way to diversify. I've thought about putting more money into cash like accounts like my emergency fund to capture any yield, but of course if interest rates change, that is going to lose out to inflation. I've thought about gold, but gold is a non-performing asset, and of course physical gold, you pay a difference in the spot price when you buy. It's called a premium. And I don't know if that's the best asset either, because of course it is a non-performing asset, like I said. So that is pretty much a thought back in my mind, but I think that I'm just going to contribute to the equities, which I've been doing. But I've always thought about another way to diversify, whether that be through real estate, gold, or just in cash more. But I feel like each of those has a disadvantage. Remember, if you did enjoy this content, give this video a like. It will be greatly appreciated. It'll help this video get out there to a wider audience, and also subscribe for future content. I know you probably don't enjoy maybe these net worth updates. You guys want to see more about, ETFs and other investments. But the initial reason I started this channel was to have it as pretty much like a journal to track my net worth. And I also think it's very important for full disclosure to show you how everything breaks down. I don't really see too many YouTubers doing this, so I do enjoy showing this complete picture to you, whether my net worth increases or decreases month to month. So I do want to thank you all for watching, and then I'll see you in the next video.